How many should we skip?
Well, I'm just gonna skip those two. That'll be enough for factored form.
Okay.
Actually, I might add another box or two at the top. So. I'm gonna skip 4 boxes. Okay? 4 boxes. Yep.
So basically, skip.
Okay. Okay, solving means finding the, and I'm gonna put several words here. They're all the same. Do zeros have an E? Zeros?
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it like that. Okay, finding the zeros, x-intercepts, roots, and we sometimes say solutions too, but we'll just leave it at that for now. They all mean the same thing, and this is what, like all those words are referencing this. Where the function value, which is y, is 0.
I think she's allergic to taking notes.
It must be. It sure sounded like it.
Lucky.
Okay, so here's some parabola crossing the x-axis, and we're looking for where it does that, which is where the function value has a value of 0. So y equals 0 on the x-axis. Okay. You have done this in Algebra 1, and probably some of you, I know some of you did it in geometry. So that's why I said it's going to be a review. We have like 4 or 5 different strategies. Square rooting, factoring, which includes GCF factoring, quadratic formula, and completing the square. Part of this course focuses on a couple of those methods, but also reviews the 2 that you should have done, which is factoring and square rooting. Okay? I want you to write kind of a flow chart, so to speak. And we'll go in order of ease. I would start by looking for square rooting. If that doesn't work, your next easiest is GCF or star factoring. And then quadratic formula. And finally, completing the square. And actually, you might disagree, and some of you might think completing the square is easier than quadratic formula. But I doubt that you'll think that. We'll see. Okay? How to pick a method. I want you to ask this question every time first. Is there no bx term, or is it in vertex form? What do I mean by a bx term? Yeah, whatever, like 2x or negative 3x. Like if there's something with an x, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, if there's no bx term, we're going to use the square root method. Okay, next question. So bx term but factorable. What should we do then? Yep, use method 2, right? So GCF and or star factor. Okay? And then 3. I'll say it this way, I guess. Stuck. The quadratic formula always works. But it's typically, it would be more work than doing it these ways. Does anybody use the quadratic formula? A couple of you? The quadratic formula is nice because it's a formula, but there's a lot of places where things can go wrong if you're not super careful. So my suggestion would be to start with this, what we call algorithm. Ask yourself, is there a bx term? Or are you in vertex form? If so, square root. It's quick and easy. If there is a bx term, you cannot use square rooting, so you've got to either GCF factor or quadratic formula. Okay? Try to build your factoring skills so that you can do number 2. All right, so scroll, whatever, not for you. Huh? We're going to learn completing the square. I'm just telling you that you're not going to want to do it that way. Since we have this, quadratic formula always works, you're probably not going to want to bounce and do that version. That's all. But, so you might say, well, why are we learning it then?
Yeah.
We have to be able to do this in order to write a function in vertex form from the other 2 forms. Okay? So we can't just bypass it. Okay, go back to your examples and so your first question is there a bx term? No, right? There cannot be a bx term. Or is it in vertex form? Either one, that's okay. So here's an example of that. Let's say we had 7x squared plus 10 is our function, okay? So if there's not a bx term, what are we going to use? So square root this. All right, first step, or well, I guess technically second step. Okay, our goal is to get the squared term alone. By the way, this would be set equal to 0. So how do we get x squared alone? Minus 10, good. Change the color of that. If you didn't add the equal 0, please do that. Okay? Because why are we setting it equal to 0? What did we say solving means? It means finding the zeros, right? Alright, so 7x squared equals negative 10. Hey, everybody, just so we don't run into an issue, I should have thought of this and that was my fault, but please take your pencil and put a negative on the 7. Otherwise, we're stuck for now. So put a negative on the 7. We don't quite have the x squared by itself. What else should we do? Divide by negative 7. And we get x squared equals 10 sevenths. Okay? Once it's alone, square root both sides. And don't forget positive or negative. So in other words, we have both. So square root, and so we get positive square root of 10/7 and negative square root of 10/7. In other words, there's two options, right? That's done. That's quick. It'll get quicker as you do it more. Any questions on that method? Yeah, I
Moves
understand.
just a little too fast sometimes.
I know.